Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. Hello, everybody. Hello, Marina.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
I'm all right. Listen, we've got over last week and the amazing end to The Traitors. Already excited about Celebrity Traitors. Very excited that last week you did a podcast all by yourself about Brooklyn Beckham.
I missed you. You know I did.
But it was like, here's the interesting thing. And you know I've been in this business a long time. It was phenomenally successful. So where does that leave us? That's my only question. What is it that I'm giving you?
It leaves me craving my conversation with you today, which I'm happy to say is we're going to be able to still talk. We're going to talk about the big Beckham questions.
We're going to talk about it more because, and I have a few things that I would like to... I was going to say a few things I'd like to add. I have nothing I'd like to add, but I do have a few questions I'd like to ask. We're going to talk about Robbie Williams, who last week became the most successful artist in UK album history. He's now got more number one albums than the Beatles. We're going to talk about why and whether that's quite as impressive as it sounds.
Very impressed with it himself. Also going to talk about interesting moves in the world of kind of talent. Nigella going to Bake Off.
Yes, and we're going to talk about Alan Carr's latest moves. So really we're doing like a celebrity special. We're doing the Beckhams, we're doing Robbie, and we're doing Alan Carr and Nigella. So just a nice, lovely... Shall we?
There are delightful bits. I mean, the meme drought is over.
Oh, thank goodness.
Our long nightmare is over because the internet exploded with memes of Victoria Beckham, how she might have danced at Brooklyn and Nicola Peltz's wedding. Ended up going to number one on the iTunes chart. An old song of hers, Not Such an Innocent Girl. David Beckham was at Davos, obviously. I mean, that was as you'd expect. The first question we have to say is... The idea that nobody cares about this story, can I just put that one to bed because I saw so much of that.
Can I raise that every time? Yes, because I having listened to your podcast, which I absolutely adored, and promoting it on social media, which felt very old-fashioned. 5% of comments which are, who cares? And nobody cares. And here's the truth, I don't really care. Much about it. I know it doesn't touch me in the same way that the Johnston Paint Trophy touches me. It doesn't have all the things I'm looking for. But what I'm very aware of is that almost everybody else does care.
It's done beyond traffic. I can't tell you that. Certain things I can see and get much deeper data on, e.g. the Guardian website, and the traffic when we were kind of hovering on the brink of the annexation of a country, or Donald Trump's endless inching towards World War III. You can't believe the traffic on the Beckham story. It's
the reason that we care is because it doesn't matter. The reason you're saying we shouldn't care, that this is trivial, it doesn't matter, that's the reason why we do care. There are an awful lot of things in the world at the moment that really, really, really matter and are terrifying. This one, there's interesting sociological and psychological sides to it, but in the final analysis, like all sport ever, and almost all gossip, it doesn't matter. We can put all of our energies...
It does not affect our lives.
It does not affect our lives. And so we'd like to have a conversation about it.
Well, what I thought was quite interesting was before we recorded this, saw a tiny bit of YouGov polling. And I thought that it was so interesting that, agreed, it was a massive thing that people were obsessed with. But few actively take a side in the split. Only 6% are team Nicola and Brooklyn, and only 7% are team David and Victoria. So that is just like a huge tract of people who are like, I don't know, I'm just watching this. I'm just getting the popcorn out for this one.
That is 87% of people just going, no, just enjoying the show. They're quite publicity shy.
Yeah, well, when David was at Davos, why, you're asking?
Yes, why was he at Davos? Just out of interest. It can't have just been to meet Rory Stewart.
He was doing a podcast about regret. I can't. Also ended up saying in some other panel thing that children are allowed to make mistakes, which I saw wrongly is reported as a comment on this, which in the most oblique possible way. Who knows? Maybe he was there to get a deal to promote Trump's new Greenland, like he did with Qatar. Do you remember before the World Cup?
Oh, yes. Perhaps he's going to be part of Trump's peace conference.
Is he not on the peace board, the board of peace?
I am getting rid of Canada and I am appointing David Beckham, who is doing a podcast about regret in Davos. Whose podcast is that?
Well, everything that's wrong with our world happens there. Lots of the wrong things with our world happen there. You have to have it, I think. But always there are kind of mad celebrity appearances, and there have been for a very, very long time.
I remember Really Terrible Hang with Amy Poehler.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So to get back to the main story of this Beckham and Brooklyn Beckham sort of huge 6 pages of Instagram stories, there seem to be 2 strands to this, and I would like to talk about both of them. The wedding
Yeah.
which for me, he needs to really buck up about.
Brooklyn's wedding.
Yeah, Brooklyn and Nicola's wedding, and how he feels his life has been managed. But come on, okay, what Victoria did, we're now finding out more gradually about what actually happened at the wedding. First of all, Mark Antony. Can Mark Antony, a celebrity no one's mentioned for 10 years, Mark Antony was formerly of the J-Lo industrial complex, married to her, and he is very, very successful, and he was very successful, but never made it, he never impinged on British culture. Anyway, he seems to have been doing some singing at the wedding and also serving as a kind of impromptu master of ceremonies.
Okay.
There was a certain point where we now know, because Fat Tony, the DJ that the Beckhams brought along with him, said that Mark Antony called Brooklyn up to the stage, then said, and now for the most beautiful woman in the room, and called Victoria, because, and said to Brooklyn, place your hands on your mother's hips. At this point, Nicola runs out crying. Now, can I just say, one has to be a bit better about such things in life. You've got to laugh at these things. I was thinking about
we all know what DJs are like. Don't we?
Weddings.
Yeah, they didn't know that your mum and dad got divorced 15 years ago.
Oh my God, have I told you about Kieran's father's speech at our wedding?
No.
Oh my God, it's absolutely still late father. Okay, shine on, you crazy diamond. But we said do 5 minutes because nobody wants to sit there and listen for ages to speech.
Type 5.
Okay, right? Do a type 5. He opens the speech by saying, it's great to see everyone here. It's particularly great to see his friend Ranald, our friend Ranald, because, when we got pregnant with you, Kieran, we were going to have an abortion, and it was Ranald who persuaded us not to do it. Amazing. I was like, amazing, you've opened the abortion material. He then says, anyway, Kieran, you were born in Hollywood, California. I really, really wanted to be there for the birth, but I did a load of amazing acid, and I just was driving around the LA canyons with my friend Paul. We had this incredible drive. Okay, this was all in the first 30 seconds.
Wow.
He did 26 minutes.
Oh my God.
Every single bit of it was like, there was no filler. It was absolutely hysterical. We were crying with laughter. Okay, it's hysterical. It's funny, right? A lot of people I could see were like, oh my God, how is this happening? But we found it hysterical. I mean, I do think in life one ought to have a sense of humour.
Exactly. Listen, Kieran didn't suddenly go on Instagram and start slagging his dad off.
Well, my Kieran's very strong, and God knows he's had to be. I was speaking the dance floor, actually, his mother, there was a bit where we had a Wurlitzer jukebox. My mother-in-law, we had a Wurlitzer jukebox. You put anything you like on, okay, but you couldn't, because if you put anything on, my mother-in-law simply pulled out the plug, shoved it back in, and put the Rolling Stones back to the top. Nobody.
Wow.
Oh my God, it continued. There are so many bits that I need to pull out of memory holes. There's a bit where he said, I want to say that the years I spent with Kieran's mother were the happiest years of my life. I was like, look at Kieran, you're going to buzz in now. Literally, I think the last time she'd seen him, she tried to have him arrested at Heathrow. And so many incidents. But
wow. Wouldn't be a wedding, though, without that, would it?
No, but this is funny. Look, you can see it's 26 years later and I'm still laughing. And by the way, I was the same age as them. So with all her money, I know she can't buy a sense of humour, Nicola, but I think it would be helpful for them both if they acquired one. But it is perhaps the hardest thing for them to acquire. And, obviously Daddy's Little Princess ran out during that moment.
Almost all the troubles of the world are because the people with the most money want to be funnier than they are.
Look at Musk. But
yeah, okay. I bet Davos isn't a bunch of laughs.
No. But anyway, Fat Tony goes on this morning, last Friday, and he said, the reason I've come on this morning, because he was there and present and he did witness this, and he said, the reason I've come on this morning is because it's a safe space. And he said,
Didn't used to be.
Didn't used to know it. I mean, all the cultural strands are being woven in here,
into a
aren't they?
Singularity.
Yeah, it is. And he said, I didn't talk to my own father in 30 years due to my own misunderstanding of a situation that I made up in my own head. So I would say to them, buck up about the wedding, because really it's the brand stuff. This is really difficult and interesting. Yeah. And I think that this is the bit which is because people can see that they've completely commodified their children. By the way, I believe they completely and passionately love all of their children, and I think it's dreadful for them. But
I think in some ways, I've been thinking about this week, and this is where I do actually care about this story, because it's about the mistakes you make as a parent. It's about what you try and do, the start you try and give your children, all of those things. But in the same way that some parents will drive their kids to ice skating or piano lessons or anything like that, I do think a bit of them thought, this will give our kids an amazing start in life if they have a brand presence. This will be something that they can monetize from the moment they turn 18, rather than give them, the deposit.
Well, they
for
became
flat.
famous so young that they can't really see a particularly different way.
Do you think at that point, when your kids are 4 and 5, that they are going to turn into the greatest geniuses the world has ever known, and they're going to be insanely talented, and they're going to do incredible things by and of themselves? So you're just giving them a slight head start into telling the world they're geniuses already. It's only when they turn, a bit older and you go, oh, you're just like a normal, ordinary person, but you happen to be world famous.
I don't know.
Anyway, I have some sympathy that maybe they were doing it because they thought it was giving their kids a good start in life, rather than they thought it drew more attention to them. Or would you disagree with that?
I would say that it is always a devil's bargain. Do you see Mark Zuckerberg putting his kids all over Instagram or his platforms? No, you don't. I wonder why. They all know. You're making money for them. One of the weirdest things that you see happening all the time now, why does every celebrity have to wish their mother Happy Mother's Day and all this sort of stuff on Instagram? Just call her, take her out to lunch. I bet you're doing that anyway.
During COVID...
Okay, I'll excuse it then. I'll excuse a lot of stuff then.
It was my mum's birthday and I couldn't see it. It was her 80th birthday, in fact, and I couldn't see it. And she was knitting blankets for, I forget which charity, but it would have been a good one, knowing my mum. It wouldn't be for the bad guys. It wouldn't have been pro-COVID, for example. It would have been anti-COVID. And so I did a social media post, and a couple of famous people liked it and said, happy birthday, Brenda. So Nigella Lawson said, happy birthday, Brenda. I said to my mum, Nigella Lawson's done that. And then literally the next day, she phoned me almost in tears because Brenda Blethyn had wished her happy birthday. So, she preferred that than me going round.
In my social media Nuremberg, okay, you've had a carve out. But otherwise...
Yes. Nuremberg carve out.
But otherwise, it's all about the person doing it, okay? But you can see, but everyone's doing it, because when the Beckhams started out, I mentioned this in the little video I did last week, but there were celebrities and then there were normal people. And obviously you have gradations within the classes of celebrities. But now there is this absolutely teeming middle class of influencers, which is sort of everyone. But this is why also there are these huge and horrible sites like Tattle Life, and this is why people spend a huge amount of time doing kind of social media detective work, seeing who doesn't like this or that post. Rather than a lifestyle, it's something they're being missold. They're being missold things all the time. And this is why I think people particularly have jumped on this story, because it's like you have constantly said, here they all are turning up to the launch of this documentary or that documentary or this fashion show, and actually you're misselling us something. And that idea that stars, the people we kind of love and think are aspirational or cool or interesting, are actually just people who missell us things, is such a prevalent idea of our times.
With the royal family and with the situation with King Charles and with Harry, people have very, very, very strong opinions on both sides of that divide. There are people, if you guys did who's team Charles, who's team Harry, you would have big numbers.
Yeah.
But if you ask who's team David and Victoria and who's team Brooklyn and Nicola, as you say, 6% and 7%, a sort of tableau against which we can look at the society that we live in and all the things we're talking about now. But no one really cares who wins, because no one's really all that fussed about any of them. No, do you know what I mean? I mean, David Beckham had huge fans at his absolute height. No one now is like, one of my huge fan of, I guess, David Beckham. Like it's like he's a former footballer. That's okay. In the same way that Victoria Beckham is a fashion designer and used to be in a band. That's okay. And Brooklyn Beckham is a nepo baby. I don't think anyone's all that fussed either way who wins. I think everyone would like it to end amicably and for a family to get back together and learn lessons and all those things. But I don't think anyone is really all that fussed about whether one team wins or the other team loses. And that's why it feels like a nice thing that everyone can talk about. Do you not think?
I think it's an interesting thing. I do find it really desperately sad. I think all those stories of family estrangement where you don't think the original offence is the worst thing in the world.
But we've all lived long enough and we all have enough friends and acquaintances and families to know this is one of the oldest stories in the world. So it's sad, but it's not like...
But there's a wave of it right now, The no contact is a trend. Some of it, I think, is to do with money. Remember, the one thing they didn't think their children would be doing would be the one signing the prenuptial. They thought it'd be the other way around. Anyway, Brooklyn did sign the prenuptial.
Okay, because he's married. Nicola Peltz, just for people who don't know, is the daughter of an incredibly wealthy.
Yeah, he's a sort of activist investor. He's a sort of financier and activist investor, a guy called Nelson Peltz. He lives out in Palm Beach. He's a sort of MAGA guy. He tried to take over Disney. We mentioned him actually originally for the first time probably ever on this podcast because we were trying to take him again.
Brooklyn has signed a prenup essentially in the favour of Nicola because she's the one with the money and the power in that situation.
And they deal with everything with lawyers. I mean, as far as I can work out, Brooklyn, they sue, of course they're going to sack a wedding planner and sue them. That's where lots of this original information about this feud came out. They're going to sack the wedding planner, then they sue. They seem to be in some sort of dispute, Nicola and Brooklyn, with a dog groomer who I think they believe killed a chihuahua. I don't know. I don't know if that's the breed. From what I hear, I think the Beckhams give Brooklyn a lot of money, but not like insane money. And they kind of have this dream, in my view, a bit of a pipe dream to some degree, that he will sort of stand on his own 2 feet and become independent. I hear, and maybe Nelson Peltz would deny this, but I hear that he said to them, I give my daughter $1 million a month allowance. Why don't you?
$1 million a month?
Yeah. Now Brooklyn describes her.
Let me do the maths. What's that? 12 million a year?
Yeah, even I can. I don't rely on you for that small piece of maths. But
what's she spending that on?
Well, I don't know. Brooklyn says that she's the hardest working person he knows.
I thought you were going to say she's the hardest person to buy for. You think, no kidding.
Yeah.
So
she's
the hardest
working person he knows. About 2 years ago, she had a film in which written, directed and starring her.
Oh, that's right.
In which she played a stripper just trying to feed their kid.
Yeah.
Some real poverty tourism there, called Lola. I don't know if there's any plans to make another film, and I think we can work out where she got the funding for this one from, but I'm not...
She saved up her pocket money.
They've done a couple of shoots for Moncler or this or that, but when I think of, every now and then the UN release those lists of the hardest working people in the world, and it's like the Filipino fisherman, the salt flat worker, the hazmat diver. I don't think she's kind of rocketing up into the top 10 of that one.
Never seen her on that list.
I don't see her nudging out, the Ghanaian loggers and stuff. No, I don't.
But what did he say? Did he say she's the hardest working person he's ever met? He knows. There you go. Which is probably true. But he doesn't know any Ghanaian loggers.
No. Do they really... one of our final backup questions today must be, do they truly wish to only live privately, Brooklyn and Nicola? Because it's almost as though that word, even they have so forgotten what it means, that they put this whole vow renewals on, they sold it to someone and put it all on Instagram or whatever it was. People will be coming in asking now for a reality show. I mean, there'll be a huge... So they will have so many offers now for reality shows. I know that he's being offered books because obviously they think, will this be enough to do this one post? Yeah. Which I think we know wasn't written by him. Will they decide he just think, okay, now I'm going to expound on it all in a book?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because so Harry and Meghan, I sort of get, because they do have large outgoings. And there is a limit to the income that they can make. Because
their security is genuinely a massive bail.
Yeah, exactly. But and for their children and so on and so forth. So I see their need for money and also their inability to earn money in a traditional way. But Brooklyn and Nicola, they don't need any money. I mean, they've got all the money they're ever going to need. Ever. So, an interesting outcome would be Brooklyn just saying, no, actually, we actually genuinely do want to be private.
But they too have forgotten, like almost everybody, what private really looks like, because this is what's happened. It's so extraordinary if you think back. We didn't live like this 20 years ago. Not every single thing was put online and everything picked over, and people even looking, who didn't like it, nobody lived like this. And to say in an Instagram post, we only want to live privately, when you spend the rest of the time making YouTube videos, when you release all your wedding pictures, the second wedding, by the way, and you sell the first. I don't even think you know what that word means anymore.
Yeah, but you only say on January the 1st, I want to stop eating biscuits if you eat a lot of biscuits.
Okay, well, the proof will be in what they continue to do. And I think that if you think for a second they understand or want to withdraw from the public eye completely, I don't think that will be the case.
Oh, God, I would. Wouldn't you? So you started by saying that an awful lot of people on the internet going, we don't care. We don't care. It feels like a story that we should care about if we care about our culture and we care about human beings and what it is to be a parent and what it is to be a child. And it's unfortunate it has to go through the prism of another human being, but they put themselves in that position. Through the ages, people, there are examples in our culture that we can learn from. This is always the way our world is we're interested in other people. We're interested in, stories like this. It feels like it's okay.
Well, it's a
to
cautionary tale, isn't it? It's become a cautionary tale. And I have to say, it's one that will definitely run, because one of the most unfortunate things that post did was a little bit like Meghan and Harry saying, we're stepping away. If you think you're drawing a line under it, you are not drawing a line under it. They have now almost been mapped semantically onto Meghan and Harry, and you saw that there were 30 stories immediately on, say, the Mail Online about them. It will just carry on until there's a resolution, a further schism, whether a book comes out. It's now a rolling nightmare, I have to say, for the Beckhams, because it's this constant sort of serpent in paradise story, and it's very, very difficult when you have made your brand and your harmony everything for such a public show of disharmony. I find it quite difficult for them.
But it's like, listen, never go to war in Afghanistan. You'll still be there 300 years later, won't you?
It's exactly this is Afghanistan without any question.
Yeah, we should do a podcast about regret, but where would we do it?
In the shadow of a Hindu Kush.
Really good idea.
Now, we're going to talk about Robbie Williams, who's had his 16th number one album.
It's nice to be able to talk about Robbie and music again, because we've done the documentary and all that kind of stuff, and we forget he's a musician. On Friday, Robbie became the most successful artist in UK albums history. He had his 16th number one album. He had been tied for a number of years. In fact, since the Better Man soundtrack went to number one, he'd been tied with the Beatles. That was his 15th. I mean, to be fair, the Beatles had a couple of number ones that were sort of, the best of the Beatles. Okay, fine. But he now has 16 UK number ones and is the most successful act in the history of the British album chart. The album is called Britpop, which is pretty on the nose. If you listen to it, it's actually not a bad album. But Robbie never makes a bad album. He absolutely never does anything that's not obvious. But it's nice that somebody is.
What about Swing When You're Winning?
Doing that. Yeah, but again, if you like that sort of thing, if you want to
he
sort
never makes a bad album if you like that sort of thing.
Yeah, But if you want a sort of younger Bradley Walsh, then Swing When You're Winning is exactly what you're looking for. That was his second biggest selling album of all time, by the way, Swing When You're Winning. That was over 7 million sales. That was back when albums used to sell 7 million, which this album will not. So Britpop, you listen to it, absolutely chock full of Oasis references and Verve references and songs that sound like Elastica and songs that sound like Supergrass. One of them written by Gaz Coombs from Supergrass. So it's a real throwback stuff. It is, he said himself, I spent so much time sort of looking backwards because they stopped playing my music on the radio, so I didn't really know how to look forwards into what I was doing in music, so I kept looking backwards. So I thought, well, if I'm going to look backwards, I might as well absolutely commit to this thing. So he's called it Britpop.
He will commit to a bit, I'll say that for him.
He really will. The front cover, I have to say, the front cover is very, very good, which is the picture of him from Glastonbury, the famous picture of him in the red Adidas tracksuit with the bleached blonde hair and the tooth blacked out. It's that in a frame in the National Gallery with protesters throwing orange paint over it in T-shirts saying "Just Stop Pop." I mean, that's quite a good front cover. Again, it's Route One, but Route One in a good way. So, is Robbie Williams really the most successful artist in the history of British albums? And of course, the answer to that is no. He's wanted to have this 16th number one for a very, very long time.
He says he wants it more than anything, and that it makes his imposter syndrome come out, but he kind of always gives rein to that, and that he wants to, like, he just feels like it's my ego and I know what it is, but I know it, I name it, but I still want it, sort of thing.
So exactly, the album was due out. It was launched kind of last August. He did an event at the Groucho, of course, because he's trying to hark back to the 90s and Britpop. Funny to think, as people who lived through the 90s and Britpop, quite what a historical record that is now. It's like us looking back to the early days of skiffle, but Britpop is a absolutely a museum piece now. So he did it at the Groucho Club, and the album's coming out on October the 10th. You would have noticed, keen listener and viewer, it is not October the 10th. Yeah. It is in fact January of the following year. So it's coming out October the 10th. And he made no bones about it. He said, I want this to be my 16th number one album. I want to be the most successful albums artist in the history of British music. What happened in October, Taylor Swift decided she was going to release The Life of a Showgirl, at which point Robbie Williams went, I might not release my album now. I'm not going to do that. So he decides instead to release it this week, Taylor Swift has not got a new album out this week. I'll tell you who's got new albums out this week.
Most weeks she has.
Yeah, most weeks she actually does,
yeah.
which we'll get to, actually. He was competing this week with the new album from Madison Beer.
Yeah.
You remember Madison Beer? With the new album from Sleaford Mods.
Sleaford Mods.
And listen, I love Sleaford Mods, but, they're not Taylor Swift. And you know what? Neither have they ever pretended to be.
No.
And the new album from Nathan Evans and St. Phoenix. And Nathan Evans is the guy who did the Weller Man sea shanty song.
Yeah.
I was listening to that album this morning. It's actually really good. I'm going to recommend the Nathan Evans and St. Phoenix album. Anyway, he releases it in a very, very soft week for albums, and it went to number one, understandably. And as I say, it's his 16th number one, beating the Beatles.
But the whole of we have to be fair and say, the entire of the entertainment industry, every single one of its strands, is about people thinking about release dates. I mean, from what they want to go up against, whether it be
movies,
films, books,
TV shows,
anything. You're thinking, well, I don't think we'll put it up against, the first week of January because that's when Trader starts and there's no point.
Yeah.
Everybody's thinking of that all the time.
Whereas albums, it's always been incredibly. If you want to have a number one single, always release it the week after Christmas or the week after that. It's just it's incredibly soft time for those things, which is what Robbie has done. And absolutely fair play to him because you can't have your 16th number one album unless you've had a lot of number one albums before. So he's sold 75 million records before. So, he's able to get to his 16th because he's had lots before. But to his 16 number one albums, so he's had 16, the Beatles have had 15, but it hides a different story, which is his albums in total have spent 38 weeks at number one. So 38 weeks across those 16 number one albums. The Beatles, across their 15 albums, have had 176 weeks at number one. So the Beatles are demonstrably and massively the more successful act. Sold an awful lot more records than him. He sold 75 million. They sold something like 300 million. By the way, a record that will never be surpassed because no one buys records anymore. But also, God bless him, it is not a record that is going to last more than, I would say, a year, because Taylor Swift is already on 14 UK number one albums, and because of re-recording some of her stuff and this, that, or the other, she'll release a couple in this year, and she will overtake Robbie as well. So it's the reason I found it interesting is the album itself is incredibly nostalgic. As I say, I quite liked it. I mean, he writes with good people. He's always written with good people. And as I say, Gaz Coombs has written something on this. Freddie Wexler has written something on this. But the nostalgia of wanting to be number one as well, I thought was interesting. In an era of streaming, and we come from an era where, for example, having a number one single was a big deal.
Yeah.
And now it's hugely not. And Robbie's lead-off track from this album is called Rocket, which has Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath playing guitar on it. And that was a number 36 hit, Rocket. So, we live in a different age from when Madness or Dexys Midnight Runners could, go up to number one after a couple of weeks. But he wanted to have a number one album in an era where that doesn't mean anything anymore, where you can get to have a number one album of, with 17,000 sales sometimes. He wanted to do it. He released a record that could have been recorded in the 90s. He put it on a trajectory that could have been in the 90s as well. And the whole thing...
Well, it suits his, speaking of brands, it suits his brand, doesn't it? Which has become, I speak incredibly candidly about my demons and my inner voices and my kind of weaknesses and my competitiveness and my ego. So this is the perfect story, isn't it? That I have to have this. Why do I have to have this? It's worthless.
Yeah.
It's like
it's cyclical.
He's got to type 5 hours of interview material on that. And I've watched quite a lot of it already in the documentary. He's
got to get up in the morning. It's like, when Phil Taylor had won, 16 world titles, you got to get out of bed for some reason. And this is Robbie. Robbie's only ever had 2 albums in his entire history that didn't go to number one. So, he's only had 18 albums. And, Live at Nebworth went to number 2, kept off number 1 by Dido. And
what a cursed battle.
And Reality Killed the Video Star, which is an absolute AI Robbie title.
Yeah.
Got to number 2 as well. And that was kept off number 1 by JLS. So, he's lived through the generations, Robbie. In terms of the songs, he's written a song with Gary Barlow
Well, I'm looking forward to the Take That documentary.
Yeah.
I think is coming out
On
this
Netflix.
podcast will come out on Tuesday, and the Take That documentary on Netflix will be out on Tuesday.
Yeah, which would be absolutely fascinating to see, because there's obviously a détente between Robbie and Gary now, and there wasn't always. But they've written a song together. Do you know what the song they've written together is about?
Remind me, because I do know this.
It's about Morrissey.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry,
Why is it
something
that
ridiculous?
everything on this podcast leads back to the same things
Yeah,
every single time?
sorry.
Yeah, they've written a song for reasons best known to themselves about Morrissey, and absolutely fair play to them. Robbie has weighed in on the AI debate. He's written a ballad about AI called Human, which begins, "This is a letter from the future." And I was really looking forward to that. I was listening to the album thinking, I hope
Why were you?
Why was I?
Why were you looking forward to it? Robbie Williams' ruminations on AI. Okay.
No, I was looking forward to that because I thought, I bet there's something on this album that's so bad, it'll be fun to talk about. Do you know what I mean? But actually, it's not bad.
Did it pluck at your heartstrings?
It didn't pluck at my heartstrings, but it's a nice song.
Yeah.
And everything on this is a nice song. And there's a song that literally sounds note for note like Elastica, and the Gaz Coombs song sounds note for note like Blockbuster by Sweet. But there's some good stuff on there. He always picks very, very good collaborators.
It's a good time of vogue for it. John Niven, the brilliant, who I love, all his books, he's written a play about the Blurb Oasis battle for number one, and it's called The Battle, and it's coming at Birmingham Rep. I think I really want to see that. I will go to Birmingham and see that.
But I do think I just wanted to, in this world where, we talk about people just because they do documentaries and they're on social media and stuff like that he's gone into a studio, he's teamed up with a load of musicians, real human beings making real music, released it in the way he used to in the 90s. It's absurd that it's number one. It doesn't mean anything in terms of the Beatles and stuff like that, but his career means something, and I think he's allowed to have that number one album. And for the year that he's going to hold that record of the most successful artist in UK album history, I think, listen, if it makes you happy, then God bless you and thank you for the music.
I hope it fills the gap.
Nothing fills the gap.
No, I know. He spent a
will.
lot of time telling us.
I know, but nothing ever will, Robbie. You know that.
Yeah.
Shall we finish with a couple of moves in the world of television?
Talent.
Television talent. So Bake Off, Prue is leaving Bake Off. Okay,
Yeah.
Prue Leith. And as feels like she's been there 3 series. Of course, she's been there 10 years, which feels like enough. And she's 86 years old and she has earned a rest. And, apart from Paul Hollywood, everyone leaves Bake Off eventually.
Yeah.
I think they've had 10 separate hosts. But I think it's a masterstroke they're bringing in to replace her.
Nigella. Okay.
Nigella.
That, I'm sorry, I love Prue, she's great,
Yeah.
but this is a mega trade up.
Yeah.
This is like when Christian Bale replaces George Clooney as Batman. This is like, what's his name? Jon Stewart replacing Craig Kilborn on the Daily Show. This is like, Nigella is a star, okay? And she actually does bring with her a different audience. Nigella is
a huge audience in America and a huge audience in Australia,
which
are a big deal for. Yeah, I think it works for her as well.
It really works for her. Can I? Yes, because it's a sort of full circle to some degree. Although How to Eat is it's brilliant and is kind of like her original kind of blockbuster cookbook. Domestic Goddess with all the cakes and things like that was really the thing that sort of caught a particular moment. Yeah. And Bake Off is building its next great dynasty.
Yeah, I tell you what we should do.
Like Liverpool.
1 point.
In the 70s and 80s.
It's very similar.
She's the Dalgleish, basically.
She's the Bob Paisley to Prue Leith's Bill Shankly.
I think
Mary Berry was Shankly.
The Bake Off is the managers, and she's the Dalgleish coming up after Keegan, and she's like, it's going to be even better.
Okay, I think that Bake Off is Liverpool. And I think that the judges are the managers, and I think the hosts are the players.
I love this. I need to think harder about this.
So Mary Berry is Bill
she's
Shankly.
Kenny Dalglish, and I bet she gets that a lot, Nigella.
So. Yeah.
She's talking about this so much, she'll be switching off now.
Whereas I think she's Joe Fagan. she probably gets.
So back to the cakes.
Probably gets less. We did the special Q&A thing, which was about the best ever comebacks.
Yes,
which
I
people
love doing
absolutely
that.
loved, and I love doing. We should do one. Best ever replacements.
Yes.
Like when somebody left and everyone's like, oh my God, this is a disaster. And someone came in, but actually it was like the best thing that ever happened. Let's note that down.
Let's note that.
And do that as best ever replacements. But Nigella may well be tricky because actually Prue is great. And so, it's, Nigella would have to be great in order to be one of the great replacements. But I think it's one of those rare things where it really, really, really works for both parties.
Yeah.
That it works for Bake Off and it will work for Nigella and it will help Bake Off around the world, which is incredibly important to them. It's in 90 countries.
It's incredible.
Bake Off. In America, it's the Great British Baking Show because I think Pillsbury own Bake
Yes,
Off
they own
as a
Bake Off,
brand.
yeah.
So they can't call it that. But it's huge over there. It's huge in Australia. Anyway, I think that's a winner. But the other guy who's had a show... Now, I think this is interesting. I think Alan Carr. Now, he's had a new show announced this week, which is very on brand since his Celebrity Traitors win, which is...
Castle Man. It's for Disney Plus, and it's going to be the story of him. He genuinely, this is true, we know he likes homemaker, we know he likes all this sort of stuff. He's always wanted... He's dreamed of having a castle, and he's going to buy a castle.
Has he?
And and we're going to see he'll have to do up and run a castle,
which he was going to do anyway.
Yeah, which he was going to do anyway, as he said. But he's got first of all, can we just say how many shows he's got right now?
I mean, he really does. So he does Interior Design Masters. Yeah. Tick, love it. He does Alan and Amanda's Adventure. Yeah. Tick, love it. So he's done there's a Greek one on at the moment, the Spanish one, Italian one. He does Alan Carr's Picture Slam for BBC Saturday night. He's got the new show on Channel 4, Secret Genius, with Susie Dent, where you find people whose brains work in interesting and unusual ways.
Got a sitcom, Changing Ends. The
sitcom Changing Ends, which is, he produces, writes, he's like on that constantly. He, RuPaul's Drag Race as a guest judge. Password, the ITV panel show with Stephen Mangan and Daisy May Cooper. He's on the new season of Last One Laughing as well. To my counting, currently, or very soon to have 8 different shows on British TV.
And I saw him and Amanda Holden last week saying that they turned down Strictly.
Which is nonsense. Because of course they didn't. It was never offered to them.
I agree with that. I don't think that's the case.
I would be fairly confident in saying that has not yet been offered to anybody. I mean, it will be in the next month or so.
They might have had a preliminary conversation, which I think is...
Or, they said to the agent has said, would you consider Alan? And they'd say, we're not considering Alan. And so there might be kind of... but no, no one sat in a room with Alan and Amanda and said, would you two like to present Strictly? I was told yesterday by someone that with absolute certainty said, amazing that Bradley Walsh and Alex Jones are hosting Strictly. And I was like, I don't think they are hosting Strictly.
No.
Alex Jones would be good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Bradley wouldn't, but no, they have not decided who's going to host Strictly yet. And they don't, that's a big old show. It's a big old commitment. It has to be somebody who loves that show, probably somebody who's been involved in that show to some extent, and you can have a wild card, but my understanding is no one's in, no one's out. 2 men, 2 women, man and a woman. Everything is still on the table there, but not Alan and Amanda. Alan doesn't need a 9th show anyway. But 10 years ago, you could not have 8 shows on television at the same time.
No.
Because too many people watched TV. Now it is so splintered and everything is so siloed that actually you can.
That's the interesting thing about it. The other interesting thing I think is that 10 years ago, that kind of unscripted out in the world format was not particularly prestige. You kind of, if you wanted to be on a big expensive studio show, much more. And that... Whereas now and obviously the absolute kind of template for it all is Clarkson's Farm, which obviously isn't a farming programme. It's a star-led, project-based.
And Castleman is made by the same
It's made by the same production company.
It's the same.
It's a real-world project. It's the same kind of thing in the sense that it's got that inbuilt narrative drive where things are going to go wrong. It's got it will have lots of locals. It will have lots of rules. Yeah,
it'll be renovations. It'll be planning authorities. But all the fun stuff. And
there's a clear mission, and it's low stakes existentially.
Yeah.
In the same way that Clarkson's Farm is.
It'll be. I've been told that I've just worked with all of these people before. I've been told that every castle has to have a coat of arms. So I'm going to see the heraldic person at Edinburgh University to find a Carr coat of arms, and we're doing this out there. Yeah. And that's like 7 minutes of a VT, and then suddenly with the streamers burst its bank, and you got to shore that up. And it's it'd be fun because it's fun to spend your time with Alan Carr. But
it's like it's all of these things are like conflict, but. And now you're going to hate this. Cozy conflict.
Cozy conflict.
It is, great. Isn't it? It's the mania for labels. But we really want these things where they are quest shows where these obstacles keep coming, and the drama and the comedy comes out of the hero not being able to reach their goal, which is what Clarkson's Farm is. But also, I do think there's something about both those shows that has a sort of certain hit element to it, because it's at a time where people are sort of thinking, does the rules of our country work any longer? Also, I'm interested in heritage. I'm interested in sort of all of these sort of things. There's something about that that it's in a kind of psychological space that the nation's in at the moment.
Looking backwards, doing things with your own hands, building things, creating things, and it's all of that is there, and it will, and with someone at the heart of it,
and also escape from the cities.
Yeah.
It's, everything has been in cities for forever, apart from obviously, things like Countryfile, which aren't in the cities. And then suddenly you're like, people want to be out of them. They want a form of escapism. And they want it to be much more kind of lavishly produced to some extent than the shows about just going to buy a house in the countryside. They want actually one person. It's interesting that The Star is really the format in all of these things, and that I suppose that they've just been finding... They're desperate after The Traitors to find the exact format for Alan to be Alan in.
Oh, I mean...
he wants another chat show. I saw him saying he wanted another chat show.
There's pilots of all sorts of things. But I think, it proves two things. Firstly, you couldn't be on 8 shows 10 years ago because it would be too much. But actually, these days, it's, he's always on anyway on Instagram and this, that, or the other. And these are just things that feed into that. And I think, secondly, that he is a piece of talent who works on every single channel. There isn't, BBC One he works, BBC Two he works, ITV he works, Channel 4 he works, and there's very few, 5 he works, Disney he works. I mean, there's very few people who do that, who work across all of those different things and have that kind of recognition and have a love from a viewing public. And he's clearly willing to do it as well. He clearly wants to work and do interesting things and fun things. And it's, listen, I'll be watching it.
Oh yeah, me too.
But does he really want a castle? I don't know. It's a question of thinking. If as a piece of talent, is what is it you should pretend that you've always wanted to do in order for them to follow you and make as a documentary? Because firstly, you get a TV commission out of it. Secondly, that renovating a castle is probably really difficult. But if you're renovating a castle with a television company behind you, you're not having to ring up the plasterer. They're doing all that. And if the electrician doesn't arrive, firstly, it's good telly. And secondly, that the production manager will be getting another electrician to come in and see you. So, why not? God bless Alan. I think some people, when they get their opportunity, like Romis, and people say, Romis is on everything. He'll be good on everything. He's good on everything, and he's nice to work with. So people keep offering him new stuff.
He's on stage in the West End at the moment.
How is he doing it? Genuinely, how is he doing it?
How's he doing it?
Yeah, his work ethic is absolutely insane. But that's what happens if you're good at everything and you say yes to everything. That's the sort of career you have. But Nigella, we approve going to Bake Off, and Alan Carr, we approve of buying your own castle. Tick. Signed off by us.
Rubber stamp it.
Any
recommendations?
I mean, recommendations, we just have to say that if you didn't watch The Traitors last week, you have to. How does it deliver every time? It's so extraordinary. Yeah. And the new, I've heard a couple of the names for the celeb one, and it's going to be, but mind you, the thing about hearing names for the celeb one is any name you hear, you go, oh my God, that would be amazing. It's almost impossible to say a name. If it was John Bon Jovi, you'd be going, oh my God, John Bon Jovi in the castle. Oh, I can really see that. Oh my God, John Bon Jovi would be amazing with Sue Pollard. And Frankie Dettori. Oh my God, that is amazing. Those, by the way, are not names that I've heard. Those are off the top of my head. But yes, definitely that. But I'm also, can I recommend something you've already recommended?
Yeah.
Which is the book 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin about the Great Crash. Yeah. I'm listening to it. He reads it himself. It's so brilliant. So thank you for recommending it. And I will double recommend. Can I tell you something interesting about one of our previous recommendations, which is When the Cranes Fly South by Lisa Ridson, the book that my mum recommended to me and I recommended. It's fascinating this week that Harriet from The Traitors, her books have not gone back into the top 50, which I'm fascinated by because she spoke about them on the show, and it doesn't take a lot to sort of push yourself into that top 50, but thus far it hasn't had that impact.
Yeah, she weirded everyone out, that's why.
Well, I think that her new book, I think, will be a different thing, and that stuff will happen there. But that book, When the Cranes Fly South, as I say, came from my mum's recommendation, is now in the top 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah, isn't that lovely?
Oh, That's wonderful.
It's doing really great business. And listen, I'm not recommending it again, but I am mentioning it again because it is absolutely terrific. Yes, I thought that was absolutely lovely. And thank you to all our listeners who bought it as well, because that's lovely to propel it into that position. Very, very chuffed about that.
Right. We will be back on Thursday with a Q&A, as always. And a bonus episode on Friday, behind the scenes at Ardman, which will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. All the questions, and lots of people have, we've always had Ardman questions come in as well. So we sort of put everything to them, how you make it, all that stuff. It's really, it's a fascinating listen, as you'd imagine, because that's a process unlike almost any other television company. And so it's I think you will enjoy that one. If you want to become a member, it's therestlessentertainment.com, ad-free listening, all that kind of malarkey. Either way, we'll see you all on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.